Hey y'all, welcome to this week's show. Once again, we will talk about a couple of plants this week that are both medicinal and edible. So it's going to be a real interesting show. You know, we're doing plants out of my books, the Spring Foraging Cookbook and the Medicinal Weeds and Grasses book. So these are really common. You're going to find them anywhere. And even though it is summer now, these are plants that are still going to be good this time of year. These are like spring through summer, actually. Whereas, you know, they're going to be a little more tender, a little bit earlier in the season, but they're just great right now. And in all honesty, you know, I love the fall. Fall's probably my favorite season. I love the foods associated with Thanksgiving and, you know, all the harvests and everything. But really, this is probably my, well, with one exception, my favorite time of the year to eat. I mean, and of course that exception, if you've listened to the show, is you will know this. It's oysters. I mean, I am an oyster fanatic, and oysters in North Carolina are only legal to harvest and eat between, I believe it's October 15 and April. So, if I'm not mistaken, that's what it is. See, I often will get oysters out of South Carolina. They start beginning of October. Nobody knows why. Frankly, we have a bunch of idiots running the state of North Carolina, especially when it comes to fisheries, game, the whole bit, agriculture. This is an old, corrupt, Democrat-run state, and we got a lot of people in there that are just there because of their political connections and literally know nothing about what they're doing, you know, much like apparently the Secret Service these days. So anyway, yeah, more that comes out about that, the fishier that one seems. But speaking of fish, again, if you're a long-time listener to the show, you know, we're going on almost 200 episodes now. So you've heard me talk a lot. If you hear me talk a lot, you know I talk a lot about food, and you know I love to fish. Fishing has been my passion since I was just a little child. And it's funny, you know, recently someone asked why it is I pronounce children and child, I enunciate them. They said, people from the South say children and chow? Well, probably the reason is where I come from. You know, my mother's family's from the eastern part of the state, down the swamps of North Carolina, essentially. My father's family's from the western part of the state, in the mountains. So most of my influence growing up, from age, 5 to 15, I was down in the eastern part of the state and around the family down there, and they basically never used the word child or children, believe it or not. You know what they said? If you're from North Carolina, you already know this answer. Youngin'. I was a youngin', children were youngins. And I'd usually hear that youngin' bees up no good. And if you understand what I just said, you know exactly where my family's from. you know exactly where my family's from and a lot of my heritage. But my cooking is, very different from most people in eastern North Carolina. And that is because, as I've said before, we had a lot of Creole influence. Family came from the island of Guadeloupe. If you ever watch Death in Paradise, that's where it's filmed. It's considered the center of Creole culture. So even though I am white enough to blend in with a sheetrock wall, I mean, I am pale. There's no getting around it. And even though I've got actually some racial diversity in my family, quite a bit of it, and even though my family's been in North Carolina and South Carolina and Georgia and Virginia since at least the 1600s, we cook more like somebody from South Louisiana. So, speaking of my favorite foods and fishing, well, obviously I'd love to be in a trout stream today. It's been blazing hot July weather, and I love to fly fish. I love to tinkara fish, but that's actually not my favorite food. My favorite food is snapping turtle. I am an absolute turtle fanatic, and second to that is bullfrog. I love frog legs, and this hot July weather, we don't get big frogs in the mountains. You got to go off the mountain. You got to go down. You got to at least go down to a big river, a big lake, a swamp is ideal. And I grew up on this stuff. My grandfather's frog gig was beside the back door my entire childhood growing up. You walk outside, the first thing you saw was this trident style frog gig. I mean, just trust me, y'all. I mean, you may think it's weird. And yeah, being from eastern North Carolina, we do eat a lot of weird things, okay? Oops, it looks like I got a little microphone issue going on here. Bear with me for just 1 second. We'll try to get this fixed. Okay, is that better? This should be. All right, so, I love frog, okay? And like I said, people do think we weird things. I mean, snake, very commonly eaten among certain people. I've had it a few times. It's actually quite good, but nothing compared to snapping turtle and frog legs. Now, like I said, eastern part of the state, you get down there, it's real hot. You go out on a July night. July and August are like ideal. September is pretty good, but I always just think about frogs in July and August mostly. And you go out at night and you take a flashlight, and when you see the frog's eyes, you spear it, okay? It's a very, actually, humane way to hunt frogs. It kills them just basically instantly, okay? I mean, no big deal. And we're lucky in the Carolinas that we get to use frog gigs. That's what you call the spear, the trident, or I actually have a really cool one that has like a star pattern. It has like, I don't even know, 8 or 9 spikes on the end that are barbed. And I mean, it's just a best frog gig I've ever found, without a doubt. I love that thing. But down in Louisiana, where they eat more frogs than anywhere else in the country, due to French heritage and a lot of Creoles and Cajuns and all that, they're not allowed to spear them. They actually have to get out and catch them by hand, and they just grab them and throw them in a sack and then take them home and pull them out and chop the head off. That's, I think it's actually, probably more humane to do it with a frog gig. That's my opinion. Some people actually will fish for frogs, and what you do then is you get like basically a dry fly with a little, I think a little red to it, and you kind of dangle it over lily pads and such. And eventually a frog will jump up and grab it, and it's like, fishing. Again, I think frog gigging is the more humane way to go, and I do like to be as humane as possible, and I frankly just really love to go out there at nighttime and gig for frogs. And they're delicious, okay? The meat, people say it tastes like chicken. It's actually more like a cross between chicken and freshwater fish. So to my taste, it's perfect. Now, most people just eat the back legs. I like to use the fronts as well. That's another thing that comes from my heritage. You don't really see that outside Louisiana. Not a lot of meat to them, but a lot of good flavor. You can cook them so many ways. You can bread them and fry them. That's most common. Absolutely, fried like fried chicken. Just give them a dredge through some milk, or you can do egg if you want. Some flour, seasoned for my taste, season it up with some Creole seasoning like Tony Chachere's or something, and deep fry it. I mean, it's just fantastic. And I mean, your kids are going to love that. I mean, you don't even have to tell them what it is. They're going to think it's fried chicken, okay? But if you got a bunch of little boys or something, they're going to just love thinking of, how cool it is to eat frog legs when, their friends all think it's weird, and they will think it's weird. But you can also do them really what I would call Creole style. This is really more like my family's recipe where you take celery and onion and hot peppers, sweet peppers if you want. We always liked hot peppers. I mean, my great grandmother was, I guess her hobby was growing hot peppers. But you take those, sweat them down in some whatever fat you like. You go with some cooking oil, olive oil. Usually we would use pork fat, of course. Render some bacon or take some fat back and, fry it up in there. And I'll add some tomato. Again, the Creole heritage, we're going to add tomato. A lot of people would not. Most of the English heritage folk and Scottish heritage folk in North Carolina won't use celery. I don't know why. And most, at least until recently, would not use hot peppers. And for some reason, Cajun folks aren't that big on tomatoes, whereas Creole folks are. And I had a little Cajun blood in my line. I got a little goodly amount of Creole and some Huguenot and different things. So it's sort of just a mix-up of French-influenced swamp people food, okay? And it's freaking delicious, honestly. So anyway, you just get those vegetables going in there, get your tomatoes in, let them start sweating down. Maybe you add a little bit of chicken broth, or it could be some fish stock. That's always good. Glass of wine, salt and pepper to taste, a few herbs like parsley, thyme is always excellent. Bay leaf. Bay leaf's very good. You could do mint. A lot of times I do mint, and I'll do mint in substitution of bay leaf. And just cook your frog legs in there. Just kind of saute them in there, and then pour the vegetable mixture over them, and then just let them kind of come to a simmer. Really delicious, really delicious. Now, what's weird about it, another reason your kids might either love it or get grossed out, the frog legs will kick in the pan. Yes, that's right. The little tendon will contract when it gets hot, so it kind of freaks people out. The same's true with snake, by the way. It can do that sometimes. If you do find yourself curious enough or in need of eating snake in a survival situation. This is something, I learned from the Lumbees when I was a kid. And I would not ever claim that Lumbees eat a lot of snake, but I think it's sort of like maybe a rite of passage. The meat of snake, and this is any kind of snake. I mean, this is usually water moccasins down in that part of the country, or copperheads, but a garter snake. I mean, anything that's big enough to eat. Is tasty and nutritious and should be used. I don't believe in wasting any kind of protein. Cook it either very hot and very fast because it's a perfectly lean meat. Okay, it is drier than the driest overcooked white meat chicken breast you've ever had. But that's actually what it tastes like is chicken breast. So nothing wrong with it. Or do like I just said with all those vegetables. And simmer it low and slow until the meat starts to break down, kind of the way you would do, calamari or, anything along those lines. It will get, if it's overcooked, it'll get really tough, but then if you do a long, slow braise in that liquid, it'll soften back up. That's also really, I mean, I told you snapping turtle is my favorite, okay? And most people in the Carolinas eat it deep fried like chicken. I love it cooked in that vegetable mix. There's so many ways to do it. In my book, Omnivore's Guide to Home Cooking, I tell you how to make a sauce piquante. I tell you how to cook it a la Creole. I talk about the difference between French court bouillon and Creole coubillon. Basically, those are so very similar. In one, you might leave out the roux. Like if you're going to a la Creole, you're not going to put a roux in it. If you're doing sauce piquante, it's optional. If you're doing coubillon, you put a roux in it. That makes you just make a thick gravy and simmer it in there. And I think when you're doing turtle, and this is turtle time. I mean, this is it's good good time to get out there in the swamps and get you get you a snapper. I do have to mention only the common snapping turtle or the soft-shelled snapping turtle. There are a couple of different ones. Do not do not harvest the alligator snapping turtle. That is illegal. They are an endangered species. I have seen alligator snapping turtles in, I guess it was Brunswick County, probably Brunswick, or somewhere between Whiteville and Charlotte. You know, if you know the region. Okay, most people don't because that's like literally the middle of nowhere. And you go through some swampy areas with canals on either side of the road, which, I mean, that's where I'm going frogging. You know, I mean, that's where I grew up, actually. Very near there, very similar to there, just like maybe a county or two away from that very spot. I saw an alligator snapping turtle cross the road that was almost as big as a Volkswagen Beetle, like the 1960s Volkswagen Bugs, right? I mean, this thing was probably over 1,000 years old. These are dinosaurs walking the earth. And I got out, stopped traffic, you know, made sure it got across the road. It was the most amazing thing. Everybody got out of the cars and was, I mean, just in awe of this incredible, like, dinosaur crossing the road. And down there we got gators, and you can use these same recipes for gator and really just about anything. Use these same recipes for shrimp and crabs and catfish or anything. Bass is wonderful cooked this way. Most people just like bass and bluegills, they just fry them up and that's delicious. Let me tell you, that vegetable mixture, a little bit of wine, some herbs, some tomatoes. Oh man, that's good. And I mean, that's like half the reason why this is like my favorite time of year to eat. And really, see, there's so few people go out frog gigging or trying to catch a turtle. It's part of our old culture that's lost. You're not going to see anybody out there probably under 70 years old or 80 years old. There's like no competition. It's not like, you know, first day of deer season or something when everybody's out in the woods. There's like hardly anyone out there. The game wardens don't give you a big hassle. It's sort of a lost art. And I mean, it used to be part of survival, but in my family, it is just like the most beloved tradition of going out on a hot July or August or September night with a frog gig or to run a trot line or, you know, any of the ways that they would take protein from the swamps. You know, this time of year, it's all about the fish. By fall, you're really getting into the seafood and the oysters and all that. Then, you know, it's all about hunting, deer and coon hunting and possums even, and, you know, all the good stuff, all the good stuff. And if you haven't tried it, you don't know how good it is. I tell you another thing that's so great this time of year is the produce. Oh my gosh. I am off the mountain right now, and partially for this reason. I want to get a couple of bushels of field peas. Now, field peas, well, everybody knows what black-eyed peas are, right? Well, there are thousands of varieties of field peas, and my favorite is an heirloom that used to be grown a lot here in North Carolina. It's like almost impossible to find now. I know one place I can get it from, so I'm going down there to get me some. It's the Dixie Lee. The Dixie Lee field pea is fantastic. But if you have a farmer or a produce stand, go to a farmer's market, whatever, if you can find zipper creams, they are almost as good. Purple Hull, again, almost as good. And actually, if you mix those two together, you kind of get the flavor and texture of Dixie Lee, which is the very best, in my opinion. The very best. You have, rattlesnake, hog's brain, that's one of them. There's so many of what's called cow peas or field peas, and they're just fantastic. Another favorite coming in now is speckled butter beans. Butter beans are, you know, sort of the ancestor to the lima bean. Another one of those regional heirloom legumes. And just, I mean, yeah, I'll drive across the state to get a couple of gallons of speckled butter beans in the freezer. You know, somebody will shell them, they'll put them in gallon Ziploc bags, and they're good to go. I don't mind shelling beans and peas at all. I've done it all my life. Sweet corn. Oh my gosh, the sweet corn's coming in so beautifully right now. The minute you pick an ear of corn, the sugars begin to convert to starch. It begins to lose flavor. If you have never had fresh picked sweet corn, you don't know what you're missing. Now, here's the other thing, and I've mentioned this before. It's in my book. We talked about this. Never boil your corn. Boiled corn is the best way to destroy the flavor of the corn. You might as well have old corn. Fresh corn, leave the shucks on if you possibly can. I know some people say, well, there may be worms in there. It doesn't bother me. If I take a ear of corn and I find a worm in there, I just cut that part off and eat around it. Really doesn't bother me at all. I will feel the ear, though, to see if there's any corn smut. Corn smut is a fungus. It's actually a mushroom that grows on the corn that has the flavor of truffles, and it's absolutely fantastic. So if I feel that lump of a mushroom essentially growing in there, I'll go ahead and chuck that and cut it and put it in the fridge and save it until I've got enough to really make a well, you can dry it, you can do, I mean, it's like truffles. I mean, it's fantastic. Even though it's a blight that gets on the corn and people usually throw it away. Don't throw it away. It is so good. You can take some corn smut and cut it up and cook it with some bacon and onions. It will blow your mind. I mean, it will blow your mind. But anyway, leave the shucks on the corn, either roast in the oven or on a grill or microwave it for about 4 minutes. Some good butter and salt, and oh man, and the okra's coming in, and I love okra. So I'm happy. And the tomatoes, my favorite combination, okra and tomato. Just take some diced tomatoes, chop them up, throw them in the pot, toss in your chopped okra, serve it over rice with salt and pepper. And I'm telling you, a little hot cayenne pepper is what I like to add, or some crushed red. I grew up on that. I mean, like constant. Almost every meal we had butter beans, field peas, okra and tomato. Corn, whether it was on the cob or just you blanch it, you cut it off the cob and go in the freezer. So all year long we had sweet corn. The best way to cook those beans and peas, just get some fat back, throw it in the pot or some bacon, let it render out, toss in your peas or beans, a little bit of water, salt to taste. And I mean, this is fantastic, fantastic food. I hope you get a chance to, at some point, experience it. I mean, a lot of people, they think Southern food, they think of Cracker Barrel, and I'm not going to fault Cracker Barrel. I can eat their fried okra any day. I mean, it's really good. They do several things I like. I like that hash brown casserole and all that, but it's legit from the farm country cooking, from the woods, from the swamps and ponds and rivers. If you didn't, you're never going to get that in a restaurant. You have to experience it. And, it's such a shame that a lot of people don't grow up around their grandparents anymore. I got to grow up around my grandparents and great-grandparents. I ate more of my great-grandmother's cooking than her own children did. I mean, I learned to cook from these. The men in my family cook too. I learned to cook from everybody. And I learned to appreciate those local flavors, those heirloom vegetables, the frog legs, and all the good stuff. I mean, when the quail come in, oh man, and I am literally drooling right now, literally just thinking about it. So, yeah, I'm gonna spend a little time down here and get back up to the mountain as soon as I can. The heat's pretty unbearable, but let me tell you, I'm going back with coolers full of good food, and I have to do this 2, 3, 4 times a year. I mean, I've got to make these journeys across the state to bring back all the flavors of my childhood. A lot of these things just will not grow in the mountains. They will not grow in my climate. I'm a little too high and a little too damp. If I went just over toward maybe Boone or Sugar Grove, I could probably grow a lot more of this stuff. Went down to Elizabethton, Tennessee. I know I could grow just about everything, but it's a trade-off. It's beautiful here. Well, I mean, where I live, it's cool, much cooler. The trout fishing's great. The hiking, the beautiful views and waterfalls. Everything's in life's a trade-off, but you only live once. Don't take a meal for granted. Enjoy that food. Thank God for the wonderful bounty He's given us. And I think growing heirloom vegetables is something everyone should be doing. We want that genetic diversity in our food, not just the flavors, but the different nutritional values they have. so different. I mean, you take commercial wheat that's used to make the bread that you'll buy in the grocery store. It is 90% less nutritious than it was 70 years ago. They have bred it to be Roundup resistant. They've bred it so it's essentially all bulk and very few vitamins. It just pulls up that water and makes big heads of grain and has no nutrition. And suddenly everybody has gluten intolerance. That was actually like super rare even just a couple of decades ago. You had a few people with genetic celiac disease, but probably 99.9% of people had no problem digesting gluten. What happened? Well, two things happened. One, they changed our grain until it's essentially not even the same plant, and soaked it with chemicals that could disrupt gut health. But two, they put everybody on antibiotics and other drugs to disrupt their gut health. And now people, their bodies can't process the protein of wheat, which is gluten. And had that been genetic throughout the history of mankind, our species would have died. It would have perished. It's not natural. Don't let anybody tell you that this is just, oh, this is natural and we haven't diagnosed it until now. No, this is really very different, and it's incredibly dangerous. And somebody really, I mean, we should have, I mean, our government is doing so many stupid things in so many places in the world. What they ought to be doing is there ought to be some kind of commission or authority saying, hey, wait a minute. What you've done to the grain is destroying the health of the population of the United States. Maybe you ought not do that anymore. Well, we cannot obviously count on the government to do that. Like Ronald Reagan said, the scariest words in the English language are, we're from the government, we're here to help. All they seem to know how to do is take our money and screw things up. But as a consumer, do everything you can to vote with your dollars and try to put an end to this stuff. And if it means growing wheat in your backyard, you know what? You can actually do it. There's a great book, a couple of great books on, and there's some videos on YouTube. I think maybe John Jevons and different ones growing just a small patch of wheat in your backyard. You can just do a little 10-foot by 10-foot square. And I think it grows enough wheat to make like 12 loaves of bread. And so it's just not impossible at all. And there are wonderful heirloom varieties of wheat. There's emmer, there's einkorn, spelt, and such. And you grow them, and you harvest them, and you thresh them, and you get a little grain meal. I got one off of Amazon or eBay or something for like $20. It just clamps to the counter. Probably more like 10, actually. I didn't pay much for that grain meal at all. And you grind your own. It's not impossible, and it's not like some kind of freaky hippie thing to do. It means saving your health and having good nutritious bread and making sure your kids aren't diagnosed with something like gluten intolerance or something like that. What's stopping you? You can actually grow wheat in pots. I mean, it's not rocket science. You do not have to have like a 10,000 acre wheat field just to grow enough for your family or to supplement. Now, if you had, I'm sure you could grow, if you had a half acre, I'm sure you could grow enough grain on there for a family of 4 in a year, and it could be of various grains. Corn takes a little more space. You grow less corn per acre than you can, say, barley or rye or, sorghum's an overlooked option. There's so many amaranth seeds. I mean, you can grow a variety of grains. And, yeah, absolutely. People think you have to have a boggy area to grow rice. You can absolutely grow rice on dry land. Rice fields are flooded to knock down the weeds. That's basically it. You could absolutely dig a little bit and make your own rice paddy and flood it out, Or you can do like Masanobu Fukuoka. You ever heard that name? He's the one that wrote One Straw Revolution. And he grew a lot of rice on dry land. And really very good, much more nutritious than the rice that the other farmers were growing, because they were using a lot of chemical fertilizers and such, and there were heavy metals actually accumulating in their rice, poisons actually in the rice. So, look into all that. But let's go ahead and get into the herbs and edible plants for the week. We'll start with, like I said, both of these are medicinal and edible. So we'll start with the one from my spring foraging cookbook, and it's not a long entry, so this will be an easy one. It's Erodium circutarium. Not at all sure how to pronounce that name. It's Cicutarium. I always just go by Erodium. Erodium's common name is stork's-bill, and that is actually very confusing to people because wild geranium is also called stork's-bill. So they're both widespread. The seed pod is fairly similar. It looks like the beak of a bird. The leaves are very different, and it is important to know which stork's-bill you're discussing. That's why I like to give you the Latin names. This, again, is Erodium, because both of these plants actually have poisonous lookalikes. Erodium can look similar to poison hemlock, while geranium can look similar to aconite or wolfsbane or monkshood. So these two useful medicinal and edible plants actually, at various stages of their growths, can look like two of the most poisonous plants on the face of the earth. So you do really need to identify these plants. And with plants like this, I say wait 2 years to harvest. Identify them, go look at them, take pictures of them as they're growing, and then the next year, once you're sure of what it is, once you know it's not monkshood, which is such a beautiful flower for such a deadly plant and very, very useful medicinally. It just will numb out. It's like the best thing topically for pain, but like a drop of it will kill you. Just a tiny little bite of a leaf would kill you. Poison hemlock, ditto. It actually can be used by professionals, not by lay people. Unless you're an expert, don't mess with poison hemlock. You know what? What the name implies. I mean, it was used for executions and such in ancient Greece. And it looks just like wild carrot, pretty much, until it gets a little more mature. And then you can tell the difference in the leaf. And the wild carrot usually has a little purple flower in the middle of its, umbelliferous flowers, whatever, white flowers, baby's breath, same kind of thing. I always recommend wait a season or two. Take pictures of these plants, and then you know what you got, okay? I don't recommend just going out and picking something that looks like poison hemlock and eating it, obviously. And the Erodium is also called, like I said, stork's-bill alfiaria, I think is the way that you pronounce that, and filary. Like I said, it looks somewhat like baby's breath, wild carrot, etc. So be sure of your identification. Now, these do overwinter, and they're important to know for foraging because they can be a vitamin source when few other things are growing. This is, the wisdom our ancestors used to have. It's native to the Mediterranean. It was brought to America by the Spanish as an edible and medicinal plant. Used as a tea, it's actually one of the best remedies for diarrhea because it's astringent. Again, just like wild geranium, they're almost interchangeable, even though they look nothing alike. It can help with menstrual bleeding, colds and flus, and other common ailments. The tender stork's-bill or Erodium in the spring makes a very nice pot herb. It's a little bitter. It's somewhat bitter. It's a little more bitter than many of the plants we might talk about, but it's if it's tender enough, if it's early enough in the season, it's good in salads. I like a bit. I wouldn't want a whole salad of it. Simply cooked in some pork fat or olive oil, topped with some hot pepper vinegar, really good. And the flavor is a lot like dandelion greens. So generally, it's like I said, it's not one I'm going to make a meal off of. I would include in a mix of wild greens and probably include a few more mild greens with that, kind of balance out the bitterness. Works really well with sorrel and Solomon seal. It's a good combination. And you can make a sort of hash with bitter greens like stork's bill or anything like that, chopped up with potatoes, onions, and carrots, and just mixed together, kind of fried up. It's really good. It's really good. You want a lot of bacon fat for that, in my opinion. Now, if you're a vegan or something, I'm sorry. It's a horrible life to have to live. But you could certainly use whatever oil you feel comfortable with. I don't know. So many people are like, no, no seed oils, no this oil, no that oil. I don't even know what these people live on. I mean, artificial food and tofu, I guess. So, like I said, uh, what a horrible way to waste a life. This hash, sort of, with the potatoes and everything, really good with fish, really good for breakfast with scrambled eggs, some bacon or some other cured pork, a nice sausage. And maybe, I mean, have it for brunch and have a nice spicy cocktail with it, like a Bloody Mary or, a good glass of wine, good dark beer, something like that. Enjoy your life. And if it means walking a few extra steps or doing a few sit-ups to burn off some calories, go for it. I don't see any reason to deprive ourselves of real food, because real food is good for you. That's why all my great grandparents lived to be, well, except for one, and that was probably due to a medical error, but most of them lived to be 94, 96, 101, go down the list. And, they ate a lot of real food. And that diet did include a lot of pork and a lot of homemade whiskey and homemade wine and tobacco and working in the hot sun with no sunblock or anything. 12, 14-hour days out in the blazing sun. And they didn't get skin cancer, and they didn't get lung cancer, and they didn't have diabetes, and they didn't have heart disease. And they enjoyed their desserts too. I mean, my word, my grandmother's made some phenomenal cakes and cookies, and you know, um, you wouldn't believe the spread. I mean, we ate, we ate. All right, so now to the medicinal herb, and as I said, the stork's bill also medicinal, but this one is a really interesting member of the mint family. It's known as Prunella vulgaris, or all heal, also called self heal. Now, I'm sure mint was the first herb I was taught to identify when I began learning herbal medicine at the age of 15, started my apprenticeship. And, I grow mints. There's so many varieties of mints. I have our just native wild spearmint growing all over my property, wherever I've got a little spot for it, because I love using mint. There are wild apple mints that grow around. Um, Peppermint you really need to take from a cutting. Water mint is very strong. I find it sometimes. Pennyroyal's a mint. It can be so strong it's toxic. I mean, don't take your mints for granted. But some of our culinary herbs are in the mint family. I mean, basil's a mint. I can go down that list, and I've talked about that before. But mints usually have square stems with opposite leaves. And one that really confused me for a while is Prunella, or self-heal, all heal, whatever you want to call it. Heal all, I guess is another name. It's all over my yard. I mean, my backyard is just covered in it. And I kept looking at it and thinking, that's got to be a mint, but I tasted it and it has no flavor. So I didn't know what it was. And then finally, when I got more, heavy into herbalism, I really, oh, wow, I've got it, bushels of prunella growing all over my yard. I actually have some very valuable plants in this yard, and I do. I have yarrow growing everywhere, and I have storksbill growing everywhere, and I have. Oh, I could probably spend an hour just naming the medicinal plants that grow in my yard. My property adjoins or abuts, whatever you want to say. It's right beside what used to be the largest medicinal herb grower in the United States. It was a nursery right beside my house. So, when I need an herb, the first thing I do is go out and look around, because I don't care if it's ginseng or golden seal, coptis, black cohosh, blue cohosh, angelica, it's everywhere all around me. And yeah, pretty darn incredible, actually. I've got St. John's wort that just pops up right beside the driveway. Some plants like lady slipper orchids that are too rare to harvest. Um, Valerian. Oh, so many, so many. There are very few things in the Appalachian herbal medicine, the European tradition, that don't grow at least within 100 yards of my front door. It's, yeah, another reason, it's worth driving down to the coast to get some seafood, or to eastern North Carolina to get some field peas and butter beans. Um, I can't, I'll never be able to replicate what's growing naturally in my property unless I was to, buy thousands of dollars worth of herb seeds from Strictly Medicinal or something and start it, and then somebody 10, 20 years from now could enjoy what I almost take for granted. Really is very nice. So, Prunella, as the name implies, it is a very useful herb. Gerard, 1500s England, said, "The decoction of prunelle made with wine or water doth join together and make whole and sound all wounds, both inward and outward, even as bugle doth." Now, we talked about bugleweed before. A jugular pins, particularly good for internal bleeding, hemorrhages, there's another word I'm looking for, hernias, etc. Self-heal is also, just like ajuga and just like yarrow and a few others, an old soldier's herb. Couple, 200-300 years ago, if somebody was going into battle, they'd probably have some dried prunella or bugleweed or a combination, definitely some yarrow, in their pocket, in their satchel, in their bag, whatever they're carrying, because it helps stop bleeding. He says prunella, or prunelle as he calls it, bruised with the oil of roses and vinegar and laid to the forepart of the head, the forehead, assuageth and helpeth the pain and aching thereof. In other words, it's good for headaches. That's a property. Many of the mints have an effect on headache. He says, to be short, it serveth for that same that bugle doth, and there are in the world not two better wound herbs, as hath often been proved. So really good for wounds. I mean, don't understate it. That's why it's called heal all or self-heal. I mean, it's really in like the top 5 wound and bleeding herbs. He said it is recommended, or commended actually said, against infirmities of the mouth, especially blackness and dryness of the tongue, or swelling of the same. It is, it's used for soldiers that lie in camp. German call it de brawn, which happeneth not to be without. I have no idea what he's talking about. He's saying there was an infirmity that soldiers had that caused fevers and frenzy, and it was apparently very useful for that. The remedy thereof is the decoction of self-heal, so with common water. He said just boil it down and make a decoction. And they would also do some bleedings, this is 1500s. And the mouth and tongue would be washed with the same decoction, and sometimes a little vinegar mixed therewith. The disease thought to be unknown to old writers, but notwithstanding, anyway, I have no idea. Honestly, he said it may have been, according to Paulus, somebody, a form of erysipelas, or an inflammation of the brain. So, what were these soldiers in camp contracting that would have, I guess, some kind of bacterial infection that would cause a swelling of the brain? And Prunella was the best cure for it, which is pretty amazing. I'm considering, I don't know that it has any antibiotic properties. Very interesting. Let's hope we never have to use it for that purpose. Sounds perfectly horrible. Culpeper, about 100 years later, said that the herb was called self-heal because when you are hurt, you may heal yourself with it. Very nice, straightforward way of putting it there. It is a special herb for inward and outward wounds, taken inwardly in a syrup for wounds, outwardly in unguents and plasters, As self-heal is like bugle in form, so also the qualities and virtues serving for a purpose whereunto bugle is applied with good success, either inwardly or outwardly, for inward wounds or ulcers whatsoever within the body, for bruises or falls and such like hurts. And bugle is also in the mint family. So it seems these can be used interchangeably or combined. And I love bugle. I've talked about that many times. One of my favorite herbs. If it be accompanied with bugle, sanicle, or other like wound herbs, it will be more effectual to use as a wash or to inject into ulcers in the parts outwardly, where there is cause to repress heat and sharpness of humors, the flowing of any sores, ulcers and inflammation, swelling and the like, or to stay fluxes of blood in any wound or part. This is used with some good success, also to cleanse the foulness of sores and to cause them to be more speedily healed. It is a special remedy for all green wounds, to solder the lips of them, or to close fresh wounds, is what he means, and to keep the place from any further inconvenience, so that it could help prevent infection. Probably has that same antimicrobial property that many of the mints have. The juice hereof used with oil of roses to anoint the temples and forehead is effectual to remove headache, and the same mixed with honey of roses cleanses and heals all ulcers in the mouth and the throat, and also those in the secret or private parts. Getting into more modern use, 1930s, Miss Grieve tells us, self-heal is a very common plant throughout Britain and all over Europe, abundant in pastures, etc., etc. Probably brought here by the Europeans. Why it's considered a weed. Obviously it's a very useful plant. It is also edible. I haven't really mentioned that, but it's a mint, and it's going to be a little bitter, but like bugle, it can be used. She says, quoting from Cole, he was an herbalist in 1657. He said that neither ancient Greek nor Latin writers knew it, but it was introduced apparently either to England or to English herbal medicine by the Germans, and that they called it de Bruin. Yeah, and they called it Prunella in England. So he said commonly carried by soldiers. He also discusses that odd disease, that swelling of the mouth and throat, as well as the brain. It sounds horrible. I don't know what that is. Anyway, medicinal actions and uses, it is astringent, styptic, and tonic. Astringent means it tightens tissue. Styptic means it helps stop bleeding, and tonic usually means it's a little bitter and good for digestion, I think. I think that would be the indication here, but a decoction or infusion of the herb, so tea of the herb, taken in doses of a wine glass full, is considered a general strengthener of the digestion. There we go. Sweetened with honey, it is also good for a sore and relaxed throat or ulcerated mouth, and makes a good gargle. Good for internal bleeding and piles, which is hemorrhoids. The infusion is also used as an injection. He means an enema. So in the Irish tradition, John Kehoe tells us that it dissolves clotted and congealed blood and heals all internal and external wounds, removes obstructions of the liver and gall, and is therefore good for jaundice. It cures ulcers of the mouth and gums if they are washed with a decoction. If applied to the head with the oil of rose and vinegar, it cures the headache. It is also good against internal bleeding and the pissing of blood. And again, that is proper English. He's not being vulgar. I don't know why things changed. Urination in French is pissure, and the English hate using any French words, and I think they just decided that that was vulgar because it wasn't proper English. Well, in Elizabethan England and apparently in 1800s Ireland, it still was. So, resources of the... No, let's start with Brother Aloysius in the German tradition. As we've learned, this came from Germany. He said that self-heal Prunella vulgaris is used for diabetes, blood spitting, hematuria, throat infection, sore throat, inflammation of the gums, mouth, tongues, tonsils, external sores, lung complaints, and heavy bleeding. So similar uses, but we also get a couple of new ones there. Diabetes, probably because of the bitter property in it. So turning to America, 1860s Resources, Southern Fields and Forests says, the plant, though possessing some power as a stimulant, has fallen into disrepute. It is also used as an astringent in affections of the throat. So it really wasn't being used much in the 1860s. But the plants of the Cherokee says that they used it as the Cherokee tribe uses a popular edible spring green. So it was really more of an edible plant for the Cherokee, but they also made a tea of it, a root tea, in fact, which is interesting. The whole plant can be used, so I don't know why they would prefer the roots. They're very small. But also made a cold water tea to bathe burns. So you can see the astringent property would probably help with the swelling and the pain from burns. Jethro Kloss wrote that the medicinal properties of the plant are pungent, tonic, antispasmodic, vermifuge, diuretic, astringent, styptic, and vulminary. What do I need to translate here? Pungent, it's bitter, it's aromatic, I guess that's what we're saying there. Antispasmodic means it helps with cramping, can be good for menstrual cramps or cramped muscles, etc. Might even help with some tremors and such. Vermifuge means it kills intestinal parasites. And diuretic, astringent, vulnerary is wound healing. So that's all that means. He said, and in fact, speaking of that antispasmodic quality, he said it is excellent for epilepsy, convulsions, the falling sickness, which is also epilepsy, and for obstructed liver, especially useful for internal and external wounds. For internal wounds, take as a tea, use as a poultice or wash for external wounds and sores, will stop bleeding. It is also very cleansing, will cleanse and heal ulcers of the mouth. An old Italian proverb says, "He that hath self-heal and sanicle need no other physician." Interesting. Especially since Culpeper said it was unknown in Italy and Greece. I don't know, but hey, I did not find any mention of it in Dioscorides or anything like that. But so Jethro Kloss was what, 1920s America? I guess by that time it had been naturalized in Italy. And he said, make an infusion of 1 ounce of the herb to a pint of boiling water. That just means make a tea. And with anything in the mint family, it has volatile oils. So what you want to do is take your herb, dried most likely, pour simmering or hot water over it and cover it. Don't let any of the steam out or you will lose the volatile oils, though it would probably still be astringent, which is why another writer recommended a decoction. You would probably boil it down and concentrate the astringency a little more. But anyway, he said take 1 wine glass full several times a day. And I'm sure you can make a tincture out of it just as well. In modern herbal medicine, I think we use it probably more in tincture form. Plants for Future said medicinal use of self-heal. Self-heal has a long history of folk use, especially in the treatment of wounds, ulcers, sores, etc. It was also taken internally as a tea in the treatment of fevers, diarrhea, sore mouth, internal bleeding, etc. In Korea, it is used to treat edema, nephritis, scrofula, and goiter. The whole plant is alterative, antibacterial, antipyretic, antiseptic, antispasmodic, astringent, and antibacterial, inhibiting the growth of Pseudomonas bacilli typhi, E. coli, Mycobacterium tuberculi, etc. So that's important. It can be used fresh or dried. For drying, it's best harvested in midsummer. So now's about the time. The plant is experimentally antibiotic and hypotensive, so it does have some antibiotic properties. Very interesting. And like I said, my yard's full of it, so I got a good antibiotic herb that I really haven't utilized for that purpose before. Hypotensive means it lowers blood pressure. Let's see. Well, I guess probably the last entry I have here is Cloverleaf Farm, Herbal Encyclopedia. They said it's native to Europe and Asia, so I assume it was introduced to America. Very vigorous, generally considered a weed, related to mint. We know that. A creeping perennial, absolutely. Very pretty little plant, though. It does. They mention it's violet, blue, or pink flowers. I like it. I mean, I don't consider it a weed at all. They talk about the history of it. This is interesting. They said in the past, the long flower spikes were thought to resemble the throat, and under the doctrine of signatures theory, the plant cured the parts of the body they most resembled. The herb was used for healing that area, the throat in particular, especially inflammation of the mouth and throat. Um, it says it's found throughout North America and used by many Native American tribes. Okay, I got one source saying it's not native. I got another source telling me it is native. It probably just grows about anywhere. Let's just go with that. I mean, little mints have small seeds and they can easily be spread by birds. So, yeah, it probably got here before the white man, but who knows? Anyway, they said it was used by the Mohegan, the Iroquois, the Delawares for relief fever, several tribes, including the Blackfoot Cherokee, Coast Salish, Iroquois, Quebec, Algonquin, and Quillette and Quinault. Use it topically to treat acne, boils, bruises, cuts, hemorrhoid sores, and other skin inflammations. And I am sure I did not pronounce at least two of those tribes properly. I apologize if you happen to be of those tribes. My people tend to come more from the Lumbee and Cherokee and Catawba, Halila-Saponi, and have some connections to the Iroquois. So I don't claim to know every tribe's pronunciation by any far stretch. The Waccamaw. Anyway, like I said, we're basically swamp people. Um, anyway, we've been through all the uses they mention, but they also say it has fatty acids, I guess probably the seeds. Good for bleedings, good for wounds, etc., etc., etc. We don't need to go back through that. We'll finish with, I got two short entries. The Peterson Field Guide to Medicinal Plants says traditionally leaf tea was used as a gargle for sore throats and mouth sores, also for fevers, diarrhea, externally for bruises, wounds, ulcers, sores. In China, tea is made from the flowering plant and is considered cooling and was used to treat heat in the liver and aid in circulation. Used for conjunctivitis, boils, scrofula, diuretic for kidney ailments. Research suggests that the plant possesses antibiotic, hypotensive, and anti-mutagenic qualities. So that would probably be good, maybe as addition to, a cancer protocol. Contains anti-tumor and diuretic compound, ursolic acid. So yeah, definitely worth looking into that. Remember, I never recommend anything for cancer, but it's just too serious an issue. I hate when someone says this cures cancer. Nothing's going to cure everybody's cancer, and it's a black mark on natural medicine whenever someone says that, because someone's going to end up dying and being disappointed and lose faith in natural medicine. If I have information that says may be good against tumors or something, I'm going to say it, and you got to do your own research. But anyway, finally, Botany a Day says carminative. That means it settles the stomach, can help with gas and indigestion. Anthelmintic, diuretic, antispasmodic. Anthelmintic means gets rid of intestinal worms again. Diuretic, antispasmodic, astringent, and mildly bitter. So, really good, widespread herb that is considered a weed most everywhere it grows. Easy to identify. The mints are all easy to identify. Great starting place if you're learning to identify wild plants. All right, y'all. I think I'm going to go chop up some tomato and onion and garlic and some good fresh hot peppers. Make a little pico de gallo. Maybe fry up a couple of corn tortillas and make some tostadas. This sounds like a really good summer lunch for me. And definitely got to get me some of those field peas and butter beans. So, man, if you ever try them, I'm telling you, fantastic. And don't forget okra and tomato. The acidity of the tomato cuts the sliminess of the okra. So if you think you don't like okra, try cooking it with some crushed tomatoes, chopped tomatoes, whatever. Simmer it down with a little bit of hot pepper, and a little pork fat's really good in there too, of course. I'm going to say that. I think most folks that grew up in eastern North Carolina are at least half pork, because we eat a lot of it and we love it. Anyway, try it over some rice. Rice culture began in the Carolinas, and especially having Creole heritage, we eat everything with rice. Rice to us is what potatoes are to most everybody else. We have rice pretty much with every meal. you sometimes we have rice for breakfast. I mean, we are definitely a rice culture. Well, I say we were. um, I think these days most people don't grow up with this much home cooking, certainly, but learning to appreciate rice as much as people in the coastal Carolinas did, because I mean that was once our most important crop was rice. I mean, more than tobacco, more than just about anything. And rice. We're talking 1600s, early 1700s. I think by about 1820 or so, the production of rice had pretty much moved to Louisiana, and from there, I think Texas and California, I think, is now the largest rice producer. But the coastal Carolinas were uh, the biggest rice producers. I mean, there are old English cookbooks from the 1700s just talking about how the best rice in the world is grown in South Carolina. And yeah, we eat some rice. And that's another reason I think my family does cook more like you would see in Louisiana, is because not only that Creole and Cajun heritage, but all the rice. I mean, we eat a lot of jambalaya, and it's fantastic. We eat a lot of tomato and rice, a lot of tomato and okra and rice. I mean, just we eat a lot of rice, and even have rice desserts. I mean, you take that cooked rice and mix in a little sugar and milk, a little vanilla flavoring, cook it up into a rice pudding. Maybe mix in a couple of egg yolks. Delicious. Just, I mean, you can fry rice. I mean, you've probably had Chinese fried rice. You can make rice like almost pancakes. You can make rice little fried patties. I mean, um, you would probably really surprise anyone, especially in North Carolina, who thinks, well, I know what Southern food is. I know what my grandmother cooked. Well, you probably didn't grow up with what my grandmother cooked. In the entire community, she was the only person that put celery in her potato salad. I mean, it's really weird how strict a lot of the regional diets were. I mean, like I said, most people from English and Scots-Irish heritage would not even touch celery, garlic, or hot peppers, and we lived on them. I mean, it's really weird, and really, we probably ate more like a lot of the black folk in the area than we did the white folks. I, and my grandmother was considered to be the very best cook in the community, to the point that people would people would come to family reunions and funerals pretending to be family members, if they knew that she was going to be cooking. I mean, and yeah, good, seriously good food. Seriously good food. So y'all, if you don't have my book, The Omnivore's Guide to Home Cooking, um, do at least check it out. I think you're going to find a lot of new ways to use common ingredients. Should give you a lot of inspiration. Definitely, you should always know how to cook for yourself, because from the prepper viewpoint, forget the health reasons for a minute. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, you remember when COVID, when we couldn't go out and go to the grocery store, even we couldn't go out, and restaurants were shut. You really need to know how to cook for yourself, and the more I do believe, the more variety you have in your diet, the healthier you're going to be. Especially if you cook from scratch. Remember, if you make it yourself, you know what went in it. So anyway, y'all, have a great week, and I'll talk to you next time.
The information in this podcast is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease or condition. Nothing I say or write has been evaluated or approved by the FDA. I'm not a doctor. The U.S. government does not recognize the practice of herbal medicine, and there is no governing body regulating herbalists. Therefore, I'm really just a guy who studies herbs. I'm not offering any advice. I won't even claim that anything I write or say is accurate or true. I can tell you what herbs have been traditionally used for. I can tell you my own experience and if I believe an herb has helped me. I cannot nor would I tell you to do the same. If you use an herb anyone recommends, you are treating yourself. You take full responsibility for your health. Humans are individuals and no two are identical. What works for me may not work for you. You may have an allergy, a sensitivity, an underlying condition that no one else even shares and you don't even know about. Be careful with your health. By continuing to listen to my podcast or read my blog, you agree to be responsible for yourself, do your own research, make your own choices, and not to blame me for anything ever.